Wall Street eked out a gain on Friday while with the S&P 500 snapping a 4-week losing run. This after President Donald Trump said that there would be some flexibility with tariffs but maintained the April 2nd deadline for reciprocal tariffs. Stocks in Asia open higher even as reciprocal tariff deadline nears. The GIFT Nifty is also indicating a gap up start for the Indian market. Oil records a second consecutive weekly gain as fresh U.S. sanctions on Iran and the latest output plan from OPEC Plus raised expectations of tighter supply. Brent trades at $72 a barrel, while the gold prices ease on stronger dollar and profit-taking amid lingering geopolitical and economic uncertainties. SEBI is set to hold its first board meeting under the new chairman Tuhin Kanta Pandey later today. The press conference would follow at 5 p.m. where there would be the chairman addressing the media. Reports suggest that the conflict of interest disclosures and settlement schemes fraud algo brokers on SEBI's agenda today. Hello, good morning. You've tuned into CNBC TV 18. I'm Vinny Motiwala and you're watching Power Breakfast with me. Thank you so much for tuning in. It has been a great week last week when you saw that Nifty closed in the green for all the trading sessions. Today also, let's look at what the Asian markets and how they have opened up in trade. A good handover that's coming from the global markets. As of now, we're seeing that the Taiwan index is holding on to gains of 0.4%. Hang Seng is down 0.2%. Bit of a mixed opening is what I could say because Nikkei again is open in the green, but ASX 200, that's the Australian index, that's trading in the red. But there's no worry for the Indian market because look at the Nifty implied open, more than 100 points uptick. So a gap up start is what we're watching out for the Indian markets. 113 points up as of now is what the Nifty implied open is indicating. That momentum we saw last week is expected to continue even today. As of now, a strong positive start for the Indian market is what is indicated. But let's just take a step back and look at what the U.S. market did, right? The Wall Street, that ended higher on Friday. The S&P 500 added close to 0.1% in Friday's trading session. Nasdaq, that climbed over 0.5%, while the Dow Jones also advanced 32 points in the trading session. Let's go across to CNBC's Julia Burstein, who's getting us a wrap on what happened on Wall Street.
U.S. markets were up marginally across the major indexes in Friday trading as the S&P snaps a 4-week losing streak. The Dow up 32 points, the S&P 500 up 5 points, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq up 92 points. President Trump awarded Boeing on Friday the contract to build the next-generation Air Force jet, dubbed the F-47. The so-called next-generation air dominance program will replace Lockheed Martin's F-22 Raptor with a fighter jet that can enter combat alongside drones. It's a big win for Boeing, which has suffered a series of safety and maintenance crises. The new plane's design remains secret, but is likely to include stealth technology, advanced sensors, and cutting-edge engines. The initial contract for the Air Force version of the jet is worth an estimated $20 billion. And as the threat of tariffs forces companies to expand manufacturing in the U.S., Johnson & Johnson announced plans Friday to invest more than $55 billion in the U.S. over the next 4 years. That includes 4 new manufacturing facilities for the pharmaceutical giant, with a groundbreaking ceremony today on one plant in North Carolina. J&J says it will also boost spending on R&D in a move it says will create jobs and speed up drug discovery and development. That's what's happening here in the U.S. Back to you in Mumbai.
Thanks for that. Let's move on. And Chicago's Federal Reserve President Austin Goolsbee says that he still sees interest rate cuts that is on the cards through the risk, though there is a risk of rising to that outlook. Listen in to what he had to say.
The economy's huge. If you're a pessimist by nature, for sure you can find things that will make you more pessimistic. If you're optimist by nature, there's a lot in the hard data that's strong. This is why it's not an easy job to be central banker. You got to, what keeps you up at night? Your job is not to sleep at night. You got to think through every scenario. I still think the economy is resilient. And if we get past this bumpy period of some uncertainty, I still think that when the unemployment rate and the job market are settled in at what looks like full employment, if we can continue to make progress on inflation over the long run, I believe that rates 12 to 18 months from now will be lower than where they are today.
Okay, let's also listen into some market opinion coming in from Andres Lemon, the Senior Portfolio Manager at Morgan Stanley Investment Management, and what his thoughts are.
I think it's going to be a subpar year for equities, but I think we've put in a tradable short-term low. A few reasons. Number one is the VIX hit that panic 25 and it's dropping. I see it's down yet today. Financials were leaders going in. They actually outperformed in the downturn and they're leading coming out. That doesn't happen if we're going to have a new low. Credit spreads really didn't widen out that much. And to Steve's point, what's fascinating is the business uncertainty index hit higher than it was in March of 2020 during COVID, and that is a tremendously good contrarian signal. So I'm not, I still think the market probably ends in the low 6,000s for the year, but I think this is, we've seen this low of this correction.
Okay. That's all the global market action that we have for you all this morning. But how is all this going to be impacting our Indian markets? We have a team of research joining with Natasha Satya for trade, important stocks to watch out for in today's trading session. Good morning, Vivek as well as Sudarshan. Vivek, I'm going to start up first with you. What is the market setup looking like? Nifty implied open as of now is indicating a very strong start.
Absolutely right. Very good morning to you. Well, absolutely nothing to complain in terms of both the handover as well as the kind of setup or the kind of open that the GIFT Nifty is indicating. Quickly running through, what actually transpired in the week gone by. U.S. markets managed to snap a 4-week losing streak. All of the U.S. markets managed to end last week with gains. Now, along with that, oil prices too continue to remain quite steady, marginally higher on Friday, but Brent continues to trade around the $72.2 a barrel mark. Now, Indian markets last week, actually, Friday was the 5th consecutive session where you saw gains coming in. And along with that, remember, on Friday, there was a very large buy figure that came in as far as FIs were concerned. This is almost $1.4 billion. This was on the back of FTSE-related adjustments. That actually helped go ahead and ensure that the FI figure was actually quite positive in the evening. Broader markets in the week gone by were very, very strong. Remember, the mid-cap index gained almost 8%. The small-cap index up 9% in just the last 5 trading sessions. The IT index on Friday, remember, came with very negative cues, but even that particular index bounced back sharply despite the negative read-through that we saw coming in as far as Accenture results were concerned. Asian markets slightly muted or giving a mixed signal, but GIFT Nifty indicating a strong gap up stop and hoping that this week can continue to remain quite positive as far as the bulls are concerned.
Okay, Vivek, thank you so much for that. But on that note, let's go across to Sudarshan, who's here to tell us the important stocks to watch out for in today's trading session. Good morning, Sudarshan.
Good morning, Vinny. So we'll start with M&M company has taken price hike for its SUVs, and that price hike is for up to 3%. It would be effective April 1, 2025. And earlier this month, Tata Motors and Maruti had already announced price increase. Second is Kotak Mahindra Bank. It has announced appointment of Bhavnish Lathia as Chief Technology Officer, and company says he has been instrumental in driving company's technology initiatives for last 3 years. TVS Motor shareholders have approved re-appointment of Venu Srinivasan as Managing Director for next 5 years. And next is Hindustan Aeronautics. High-level committee has recommended out-of-court settlement for tax disputes that company had with Maharashtra government. Now, company will be paying rupees 2,471 crore for the tax dispute. That amount was around rupees 10,079 crore. NCC has bagged order of rupees 1,480 crore from Bihar government. Company will be redeveloping Darbhanga Medical College and Hospital. Power Mech has bagged order of 579 crore from BHEL, and it will be providing civil, structural and architectural works at Kodama project in Jharkhand. UCO Bank QIP is launched, and sources say total size of the QIP is rupees 2,000 crore and indicative price is rupees 34.27 per share, which is a discount of more than 9% to Friday's closing price. Last is Adani Green. It has commissioned solar power project of 250 megawatt in Rajasthan, and with this operational capacity of renewable energy has increased to nearly 13,100 megawatt.
Okay, Sudarshan, thank you so much for that. But on that note, let's go across to Mangalam, who's here to tell us which are the important cues in the world of F&O. Good morning, Mangalam. What are we watching out for this Monday morning?
Well, a lot of strong momentum on the upside is what we're watching out for ahead of the monthly expiry week. If you look at the Nifty on Friday, along with the mid-cap and the Nifty Bank, there was a powerful move that we saw not only on Friday, all of last week itself. And the GIFT Nifty suggests that this up move is likely to continue at the open itself. Now, there are two factors that are, aiding this move. One is the fact that the FII selling in cash market has abated. In fact, over the last few trading sessions, the FIIs have bought in cash for on three occasions. And Friday as well, 7,500 crores worth purchased by the FIIs. Though, remember, Friday, the FII cash flows were higher also on account of the FTSE rebalancing flows. But nevertheless, we'll take that with both hands, money coming in. The second factor is the strong short covering that we're seeing in index futures, which continued as well. The FIIs bought about 2,400 crores on Friday. They unwound about 11,000 shorts and added about 3,300 longs as well. And just to give you perspective, just in the last week, 5 trading sessions, the FIIs added 33,000 long contracts and covered 53,000 short contracts in index futures itself. And that's led to this big 1,000-point up move that we've seen on the Nifty. In fact, from the previous Thursday, before we went into the Holy Weekend, the FII net exposure was minus 1.84 lakh with long positions at around 19%. Now, on Friday, the FII net exposure fell by 50%. So the shorts have nearly halved in 1 week itself, with the long exposure increasing to 32%. And that is likely to continue as momentum increases as well. On the way up, now that the GIFT Nifty is indicating that the 23,500 mark is, something that we'll watch out for at the open, the 23,600 call writers have been very active. So sustaining about 23,650 would be crucial. At the lower level, the support has come higher. 23,300 and 23,300 puts have also been very, very active. We've conquered the 20-day moving average on the Nifty. 50-day moving average is where we open. Can we go ahead and look at the 200-day moving average or not is something that we'll most definitely keep an eye out on for both the Nifty as well as the Nifty Bank.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Mangalam. But on that note, we're going to slip into a very short break. And after on this note, we're going to actually get you the latest updates of revolving around Trump from the weekend. Welcome back to Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Now, getting you the latest on Trump-related developments, we have Dia joining in with us in a specialist segment that is Trump Watch. Dia, across to you.
Canada's new Prime Minister Mark Carney has called for snap election on the 20th of April, seeking a stronger mandate as his country fights off a trade war and annexation threats from US President Donald Trump. He also delivered a sharp rebuke to US President Trump, accusing him of trying to undermine Canada's sovereignty. Let's listen in.
We are facing the most significant crisis of our lifetimes because of President Trump's unjustified trade actions and his threats to our sovereignty. Our response must be to build a strong economy and a more secure Canada. President Trump claims that Canada isn't a real country. He wants to break us so America can own us. We will not let that happen. We're over the shock of the betrayal, but we should never forget the lessons. We have to look out for ourselves. We have to look out for each other.
Ukrainian and US officials began talks on Sunday on proposals to safeguard energy facilities and critical infrastructure, which is a part of diplomatic push by US President Trump to end the 3-year war. The meeting in Saudi Arabia, which precedes talks between the US and Russian delegations, scheduled for later today, came as US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff expressed optimism about the chances for ending Europe's deadliest conflict since World War II. US President Donald Trump's envoy said that he does not see President Vladimir Putin wanting to invade beyond Ukraine and described fears of broader Russian aggression as academic. That's all for today's updates surrounding President Trump's action both domestically and globally. Back to you, Vinny.
Thank you so much for that, Dia. But on that note, we're going to slip into a very short break. And after the break, we'll get you the cues in the world of commodities. So don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Now it's time to get you the latest coming in the world of commodities. This morning we have Manisha Gupta joining in with us. Good morning, Manisha. Gold shining brighter or maybe losing some bit of its sheen?
Well, there is a bit of a profit taking, yes, and that is because the strong US dollar index, which is trading at a 2-week highs right now, has led to some bit of a decline. But then let me remind you that the COMEX net holdings were near record highs. So some profit taking is something that the markets were anticipating. We have seen gold prices put in 3 weeks of gains and 16 days of record highs in 2025. But the long-term bullishness is intact, especially with geopolitical tensions, risks, renewed conflict in Gaza, and a very strong investor demand that we are seeing via ETFs as well coming in. For the metal as a sector, we're looking at prices continuing higher, especially for the base metal prices. Copper prices did test record highs on Friday. The U.S. copper is trading at a record premium to LME at $70 a ton. And then the U.S. import tariffs on copper being reviewed is something that the markets are looking at. What also has seen a bit of a gain today has been the crude oil prices. After 2.5% of gains in the previous week, a second weekly gain this week has started on a slightly positive note as well.
Okay, Manisha, thank you so much for that. Surely keeping an eye out on gold, the metals, as well as crude oil. But Halima Croft of RBC says that oil traders are still waiting for the impact of the West Asia's conflict to affect oil prices. Listen in.
Is that President Trump has delivered a message to the Iranians essentially saying, like, look, you have a limited window to take our offer to restart nuclear talks and like come up with some type of settlement, or we may pursue military action. At the same time, we've had U.S. strikes on Houthi targets in Yemen, which President Trump really indicated was a warning to Iran. And then we have more sanctions. We had the sanctions this week targeting the independent Chinese refineries, the teapot refineries that take the bulk of Iranian crude. So we really look like we're ratcheting up to some type of endgame scenario. We are, into a multi-year conflict in the Middle East, and we have not had any physical disruption of oil. We've actually had the Israelis and the Iranians trade missile fire, and yet we've not had any action involving the Straits of Hormuz. So I think for a lot of oil market participants, they really want to see something that materially impacts oil supply before they start pricing us in. So.
And moving on to some national news update then. The latest in the undisclosed cash found in the judge's house case. The Supreme Court has disclosed a video footage showing burnt cash footage recovered from the official's residence of the Delhi High Court Judge Justice Yashwant Verma following the fire in his residence. The revelation comes amid an in-house inquiry initiated by Delhi High Court Chief Justice, and the Supreme Court in its official statement said that the responses were noted from the consultee judges at the Apex Court. Now, Chief Justice of the relevant High Court and Justice Verma himself, the Collegium will review these responses before passing any resolution. Okay, and with that, we're absolutely out of time on this edition of Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. As of now, the Nifty implied open indicating a 99-point uptick from previous when we started the show, 114-point uptick. So a bit of a decline on that front. Still, a gap up start is what we're watching out for. But up next, you have Bazaar Morning Call, so don't go anywhere.